Hello, and welcome to day one of the industry conference presented by Christie Digital at the 50th Toronto International Film Festival presented by Rogers. My name is Jane Kim, and I'm the producer of industry programs at TIFF. And I'm thrilled to introduce Dialogue's indie producers on a shifting landscape. I'd like to begin by thanking our presenting sponsor, Rogers, our major sponsors, RBC and Visa, and our major industry supporters, Ontario Creates and Telefilm Canada. The Dialogues program is supported by Ontario Creates and our media partner, Variety. Our programming is made possible by all their support. We're pleased to present this vital conversation with independent producers from around the world. They will discuss hard-won wisdom and new strategies for keeping indie film alive amidst increasingly challenging financial and distribution models. And now, it's my great pleasure to welcome to the stage Diana Bustamante, producer and director, Yulia Lebedev, producer and co-founder of Sight Unseen, and at TIFF with the world premiere of Rental Family, Yulia Evina Bhara, producer, founder of Quan Quan Media, here with the North American premiere of Renoir, Alex C. Lowe, CEO and producer, Cinema Inutile, with the North American premiere of Left-Handed Girl. And guiding us through this conversation is Daniel Bekerman, founder and president of Scythia Films. Please join me in welcoming them to the stage.
Wow, a lot of you showed up. Thank you. Well, yeah, thanks for coming. I was just thinking about it before we walked out here, and the last time I had a job was about 25 years ago, and it was washing dishes in a chain restaurant. And I've successfully resisted having a job for the last 25 years. And I consider that to be an extraordinary privilege and gift that I've had in my life. And, you know, the last year or so, I was, you know, in a strange situation where I had made a movie and the most powerful person in the world was trying to squish the movie out of existence and stop people from seeing it. And that just reiterated to me that this gift, this privilege that I've had of you know, spending my time telling stories and having some agency over what stories I can tell, it has just really highlighted to me that this work is not done in a vacuum, it's done in a context. It's done in a political context, economic context, cultural context. And I was chatting with people at TIFF, and I'm really grateful they accepted this idea for a discussion with producers who you know, who have these choices in front of us and incredible challenges to get stories told, and somehow we find our way through. And you know, I think a lot of people are talking about how the challenges are greater now than ever. I think there may also be opportunities that are more exciting than ever, but they're you know, hard to identify. So I just thought it would be really exciting to also get out of my own head and hear from people who have experiences very different than mine and are leading their own professions in very different ways and probably have different ideas. So I'm just, yeah, thanks guys for being here. And I guess, Julie, maybe I'll start with you. Just with a sort of big old broad question. What's it like for you right now to finance a movie? You have a movie here at TIFF that there's a lot of excitement about. What does it look like to finance a movie for you right now?
I wish I had a simple answer. I think it's similar to how it's always been, in that every movie is a different beast. And as producers, we just have to figure out which path for which movie, and every time you're reinventing the wheel. So I know that's not super encouraging. But I will say Rental Family, as an example, was one where I feel like we got really lucky, and we had multiple parties interested, and we had a great partner. And so in the scheme of making a movie and financing it, that was kind of an easier one because we had the support of a studio. It's not always that easy. But we just pivot. So like, I think that's in the nature of probably all our personalities. We're all entrepreneurs at the end of the day, and figuring out how each movie can get made and on what scale. It's like, we didn't come this far to come this far. The marketplace has never been more challenging. If I had $1 for every time I've heard that since I've started my career, and how many times I've been told that you're becoming a producer in the wrong era, and like the time is over, it's past. I don't think any of us know any other way. So there's no short answer, but I think if you're entrepreneurial and you're determined and you stick with it, I think we all probably have tales of movies that have taken 1 year to make or 10 years. And as the financiers that no longer are taking those risks go away, there will absolutely be a new crop, and it's like, how do we just figure out how to bring them into the fold?
You said a word there, entrepreneurial, and I never thought I would be an entrepreneur, but over the last few years I've been thinking about that word, and being an independent producer, to me, like, maybe epitomizes. I think you can make the case that it epitomizes the word entrepreneur, because it's about looking for value. Entrepreneurialism is about identifying value. And I think that's what we try to do on the story level and in the context of the business. But when I think about that word, and then I think about how indie producers often behave, I find that we really are quite reactive a lot. The market changes. We hear that everyone wants a certain kind of movie and not another kind of movie, and that's somehow what we have to chase. But I'm really feeling like now is a time to ask a question of how do we take that word seriously, where we are the ones identifying it, or in cooperation with many others, but that we take that role seriously, where we're not just getting our marching orders from the market, but we're saying, hey, we think there's value here, here's why, and we're going to bet on it. And I think we always do a little bit of that, but as I'm seeing these trends change on the sort of marriage between politics and entertainment, it's making me feel that the need for that is bigger than ever. So I'm curious, with that word, like, how do you see, like, the next year playing out? How are you going to go out and find, how are you going to identify where you see value in the world of stories? A tough one.
I don't know that I'm going to change the way I see value, because I feel like we've always been telling complicated stories that haven't necessarily been accepted by the powers that be as obvious commercial propositions all the time. I think it's right now the moment for producers. I sense this is happening, and I'm excited by it. Is like a moment to band together and figure out how to support one another in a way that, actors have SAG. And I'm not a member of Producers United, for example, but I'm going to plug it anyway. I think it's important that we share information about deals and to try to start to make this life sustainable, because being an independent producer is so challenging and financially frequently not very rewarding. And so working on a project for that long is kind of unsustainable. So I feel like sharing information, like banding together and trying to create a little bit of a united front, however that looks for people in different countries, I'm not sure, will help us continue to tell those stories. Because I don't necessarily agree that there's been a massive sort of shying away from certain subjects. I mean, I think your movie coming out into the world is sort of a shining example of that. Like, I hope we...
It came through the narrowest cracks in the door, though.
But you persevered, and so that's in our nature. But so, yeah, that's my hope, that people will still... There's always exceptions to point to, and I think, you know, the movies that did well last year, yours included, you know, are shining examples of movies that weren't necessarily all made in a very traditional model, not with necessarily all of the biggest movie stars in the world, and still ended in a very great place. So I'm happy that happened, because now this year we can point to that, to the financiers and the studios, et cetera, and say, look, the proof is in the pudding. Let's go.
Okay, well, I want to get to everyone before we, you know, we'll come back around to some of those ideas, I think, because I am really interested in, you know, the idea of there being pressures that are perhaps put on, you know, telling certain kinds of stories. I do feel like there is a bit of a new era with both challenges and opportunities, but we'll keep getting to that. So, Diana, sorry. You are multidisciplinary. You do many things. You produce. You deal with the business and the art. You know, hands-on. You direct. And I'm just really curious, specifically with that experience, how you navigate those things, because often I think people see those things in opposition, the business and the art, and people argue one side or the other, but both are contained in you. So how do you deal with that?
Well, I think it's about priorities. So my main priority is arts, and I think this is the core of the cinema that I'm interested on when I'm producing also. It's about the language, and it's about what we are saying through the images, what kind of connection we are creating with the audience through the images we are producing. So that's my main concern. So it's in the both sides, being producer and directing, or as a curator or whatever. The essence of the cinema is what is important for me. So it's not that difficult. What is difficult is to make it real. Is try to put on the screen films that probably all these conversations about the market, the audience, the market is not made for this kind of films, but I'm sure there is a market for those films. There is an audience for those films, and that's the most challenging thing. So, but what you said at the beginning is it's true. I mean, producers like me or filmmakers like me, we have to be with many hats. You know, it's like we produce, we direct, but at the same time we have to be connected with what is going on in terms of distribution and even with exhibition. Is okay, the business is going in that way, what we can do in another way, because we are not made it for the market, but we have to exist. So it's a double challenge, you know, find the place for our films, being honest with the films and with the art that we truly believe.
So you brought up reaching audiences, and again, specifically with being, you know, both a director and a producer, you are intimately involved in each step, including the early phases of, you know, plotting the course for your idea. So how do you think of reaching an audience, both in practical terms of relating to distributors, but how does that get entwined with the creative process for you?
Well, first, I think it's about to be conscious who is your audience. The films that I'm normally doing are not made for the big audience, for, you know, it's like not massive films. So when we are doing the film, we try to think in the audience that are interested on those films, but at the same time, when we are releasing a film, we also make many things in order to try to make a big, little more audience. And for us, it's more like a collective experience. It's not about, of course, I love the cinema. I made films for a big screen. But it's great when we are doing like open air screenings in a town where it's not cinema, for example. That is very often in Latin America, especially. It's great when we screen a film in a school without a cinema, or this is the kind of strategies we are trying also to recover. And it's the experience of the cinema is the experience of being together, sharing something, and the film has a starting point of a conversation. It's not only about tickets, it's something that is beyond of that. So with this idea, we work since the beginning, even when we are doing films, for example, I don't know, in very isolated places. The way that we made the film is create relations with the community. And that relation is on the film and is after the film. I mean, we normally release the film. The first place is where the film has been shot. It's about a more human scale, probably. Like, we are not trying to raise a million of spectators. We want to touch, the right ones, the principal ones. It's more about that.
Super fascinating. So are you kind of saying that there's a longer life to the whole process than just the screening of the film, and it sounds like you're talking about building community, including yourself as a filmmaker, the distribution process, and the audience, that's just an ongoing dialogue. That's a wonderful way of looking at it. And what mechanisms are there, or do you have to invent your own to make that happen?
Yeah, and as Julia said, everything is different. You have to create new strategies to produce and new strategies to connect audience with your film. And it depends of many, many things. I don't know, one of the films that we made and released 2 years ago was a very tough documentary, and we knew that the commercial cinemas will refuse to have us. So, okay, what we gonna do? And we realized that the young people was very interested on know more about the subject of that documentary. So we used social media and TikTokers to talk about the film. So I made a screening just for them, and they started to talk about the film, and they create a huge interest on the very young people. So we basically create like a promotion thread between the TikTokers, and it was the way to connect the people with the film. And we announced, okay, this week we will show the film in this library, sold out. Next week we will show the film in this university, sold out. And it was everything through TikTok, for example.
Can you say a little bit about, like, specifically what the subject matter was that created that rapport with the audience?
The film is made with archive, with the news on the 80s in Colombia. There was a very violent time. It's not a sexy subject for people on the 20s, but certainly there is a political moment in the country where the young people is more interested on politics. And what we choose when we look on TikTokers and these influencers was people that were talking about politics, but they are very, very massive, and that was the way.
Great. Yeah, there's a lot in there that I think is interesting, both in terms of like business models, but also, I think what you're getting at is creating like a kind of space for storytelling that is incorporating what we might call the kind of disposable parts of our current culture, the disposable parts of storytelling, because TikTok is still storytelling, and sort of finds a way to make it all kind of work together, which is really fascinating. But I think what it adds up to is something I've been really interested in thinking about, which is just a question. I don't have the answer, certainly, but how when so much of the storytelling in our culture feels so disposable and profane, how can we create more of a sense of just a deeper meaning and kind of almost a sacredness around that deeper meaning over the stories we're trying to tell? And that's a question I have for everybody in the world. How can we do that? It sounds like you're getting there, so that's very cool. So Yulia, so I'm just beginning to learn a little bit from you about your business in Indonesia, and I'm very curious about everything in terms of how you finance, how you reach audiences, what the appetites of the audiences in Indonesia are, and how that affects helps determine how you shape your business. But yeah, I'm just hoping you can tell us more about that.
Yeah, I'm coming from the country, Indonesia, from Southeast Asian, where being a producer meaning that you have to work in the whole of the process, start from the beginning, the development. You need to find discover the talent. You need to finance your films. You need also to gather the crew, and then in the distribution, you need to distribute your film by your own. And this is the same with the studio. So we are like kind of competing, or like me, even I'm like a small production company. The way that we distribute our film in cinema in Indonesia, we need to, it's the same. We need to negotiate our screen directly to the exhibitor. It's the same with the studio, and then after that, we are the one who have to do and create the P&A, and then also after that to negotiate with the streamers, for example. So we did everything from the scratch until the distribution.
So just to be clear, you are really leading the whole process.
Yeah.
Every step of the way through the distribution.
Yeah.
Making all of the deals with the theaters and things like that. So you do everything.
Everything. So yeah, with this situation, because we are not really like have a distribution scheme in Indonesia, so we need to distribute our film directly by our own. With this situation, I think we are used to with like any kind of works. So the business model, I think, is almost the same with also another country in Asia or maybe in Europe, where like me, I finance my project. It's combination between the soft money and also the private equity. And then in Indonesia, for example, like we are 280 million people. Our theater is around 2,500. Last year, our admission like around 125 million admission in the theater, where 70% of the audiences, they watch a local film. This the local industry, it's like growing. We are our people watch Indonesian film. But of 70%, course,
70%. That's big.
Yeah.
For all the Canadians, we would, just
but of
pretty
course,
happy with that.
But of course, like to have like art house film to be distributed in the like commercial cinema, it's very difficult because we need to competing with big studio. And then how we finance our film, of course, the state now is like, I would say it's very limited still, but it's not that bad compared to like 10 years ago when I start my international co-production was because I cannot finance my film inside of my country because of the team, because of the talent that I'm working with. For example, like first feature, second feature film is very difficult to be financed there. And then I need to bring that to be abroad to get the financing from the international funding, like co-produce with another country. But now I think it's still limited, but I think we can collaborate with even the studio to working together. But of course, being independent producer in Indonesia, yeah, we need also to, because it's not easy, of course, we need to like maybe define ourselves, like what kind of producer that you want to be, what kind of story that do you want to tell, and is there any voice that you want to address. And then if you don't have that, I don't think that could be sustained because it's difficult to do that, yeah.
So, okay, you talk about what kind of producer you want to be, and you've sort of decided that in certain ways for the kinds of stories you're telling. And what is it like with the kinds of stories you want to tell reaching an audience in Indonesia? 70% Indonesian films, that's a great percentage, but do you find that your movies, is it fairly straightforward to get to be a big part of that 70%, or is it really dominated by a different kind of film?
Yeah, mostly it's for the local audiences. That's why I think like a lot of Indonesian film, it's also very difficult to travel because it's very local, mostly horror. But I think there will always a place, and then we can collaborate, that we can bring the film also like to the wider audiences, not only to in our country. So yeah, like it's small part, but compared to, I mean, like the whole industry. But I think to get like more and more audiences and to be sustained, me, for example, I need to collaborate also with my fellow in our region, so then we can expand the audiences, and then it can be more and more people to watch our film. So we make the space for them to see our film, something like that.
Very interesting. So your films, you really need to reach out to the world to just get them made, to finance them, as I think probably most producers doing independent film, maybe outside of the US, we feel that way. Even in Canada, I think we feel that way. But the other films that sort of dominate the Indonesian market, do they do that, or they are able to just make them inside Indonesia and they're more populist kind of commercial films? Is that right?
Yeah.
It's very interesting that
So
you know,
come to
international.
Indonesia, you can invest. We have big audiences.
Open for business. Cool. Alex, I'm a big fan of a lot of the stuff you are doing, and I know you work with, you know, you're based in both Japan and the U.S., and I'm curious just about that point of view on the world of financing the kinds of stories you want to tell.
Well, I started producing and founded a company because when I was in film school, I realized that a lot of young filmmakers feel like they need permission to tell the story they wanted to tell. So I founded a company really like wanting to campaign risk-taking, which is being kind of opposite to what the industry is generally feeling right now. It's very risk-averse. And we're very director-driven. Yeah, I mean, most of my films are international co-production, and we've worked with probably more than 25 countries so far. So there's no limit to, in terms of what genre, language, countries that I would like to work with. It's just like the filmmakers' voices and the courage to take the risk.
Love that. So, yeah, well, I'm just curious to hear more actually about that idea of, you know, a certain kind of stories that you feel are obviously higher risk, and about having the courage to take that risk. What would you say is behind that for you? What really drives you to tell those kinds of stories and take those kinds of risks? Because like you say, that's in short supply. And, you know, we're, I think, basically independent producers in our own ways, from our own perspectives, but I think it's pretty clear there's a divide of some kind. How big the divide is, we can debate, but between where kind of the mainstream wisdom of the industry is going and what it says it needs and wants, and what we're talking about to some degree here. So why aren't you just doing what the industry tells you to do?
Because that's not fun. No, sorry. No, actually, I have a question. Do you feel like that there's why those stories get boring because you feel a lot of similarity in them? Generic?
I think so. Yeah, I think that's a big. I think you actually put your finger right on it, because if everyone is getting more homogenous in both their way of looking at the world, the stories they're telling, the politics, the sort of corporate policies, and how those policies are affecting the stories that get told at big entertainment companies, I think that does all point in a certain direction and limit the spectrum of the stories that are being told. And I'm honestly worried about that. So I thank you for your risk-taking. And yeah, I think it's exciting to say that out loud and to own it.
I think for me, and I'm sure everyone on stage and down there, is that I'm always looking for a new perspectives. So it could be talking about the same theme, the same type of dynamic relationship or like characters, but always something new to say. Like if I'm producing a film in Italy, what is so culturally specific about this story that I have to make this film in Italy? The same applies to other countries. So I would say describe the films that I would like to work on, and people I work with are culturally specific, but also socially relevant to our times. Yeah.
Socially relevant. And on that subject, do you feel? I'm going to open it up to everybody here on that one. Do you feel pushback anywhere in the stories that you're trying to tell, like both business pushback, but other kinds of pushback too? Like what challenges what are the biggest challenges you're really facing when you really have a conviction that this is a story you want to tell? What are the biggest challenges?
No money.
No. The end.
What is money anyway? Why do we need that stuff?
But I think what Diana was saying earlier was really interesting. I think it's for us producers that maybe sometimes we're too occupied by so many different things that we have to do at one time. But I think it's important to start thinking really early when you're developing that who your audience is. Identify your audience, or even I maybe even work with like marketing specialists like early on, like creating a strategy to reach that audience.
Yeah, and what Deanna was talking about, do you have versions of that you think about or are working on for your films in terms of engagement with audiences that are, go a little deeper?
For me personally, I'm trying to take on my projects slightly earlier to distributors directly to see if there's any, to just to test the interest level, right? So to create more conversation, not just with financiers, but also the end, exhibitors and distributors.
Cool. Well, I think I understand we're going to open it up to questions. There's no mic we're passing around, I think. So feel free to ask anything if you have anything. General philosophy. You can ask how to get money if you want. Okay, right there.
Hi, thank you for taking the time to be here. Kind of asking about money, but not really. I guess it's more somewhat of an obvious question, but still something I'm curious at. If you were a young up-and-coming producer now in this industry where it is, how would you go about finding the scripts that need to be told, the scripts that you're willing to throw yourself behind because it takes 10 or 20 years, and connecting those scripts to the right financiers to bring it to life?
Did everyone hear that okay? Okay, cool. Who wants to grab that one? Julie, it's yours.
Thanks. It's like eyes, ears open all the time. It's reading everything you can get your hands on. It's going to events where you'll meet filmmakers, and whether that's film school or putting yourself in rooms where you're going to meet people who are creating, who are not doing what you do, but who would be good partners. So it's obviously like finding talent. Duh. I know that's easier said than done. But those filmmakers, those screenwriters, whoever they are, they're desperately looking for you too. So it's just about putting yourself in those rooms, having those conversations, optioning material when you can. I think people who are just starting are nervous to ask for things for free. I think you would be surprised at how, the market is bad for everyone. It's bad for writers, it's bad for journalists, so a lot of people are eager to have someone who's willing to work on their project and not get paid for a long time. But that means you taking a piece of IP and running with it. I think it's surprising. It never hurts to ask, and I think it's all about just being sort of bold in that, whether it's tracking a subject that you're really interested in that you think would make a great film, and then talking to screenwriters or creators and saying, I have this idea about this world. Is there something there? And it's like literally workshopping it, for better or for worse, with those people and creating those friendships. And candidly also like supporting one another, doing favors when you're just starting out. It's like you never know who is going to be in which room, and so talking about what you're working on is also a big part of it, so that they know. Because I can't tell you how many times, and I feel like Dan probably has a similar experience, where just knowing that you're working on something, it'll come up in a room where all of a sudden like it's off to the races and you weren't even there. So I think it's just not being so siloed and really putting yourself out there shamelessly, and asking for things and expecting to hear no, but occasionally getting a yes that'll push you forward.
Right there, yeah.
Kind of piggybacking on that, on what you said, I'm kind of on the other side of that, where it's, and decks of kinds, and which is totally fine and I understand, but I feel like being on the creator side of that, I've been struggling to find the right producers who would be willing to take a look and having that feeling of, oh, I don't want to bother you. But so I'm wondering how this can be reconciled, and what are your thoughts on that? Where can we actually find you in a space where it's like, I'm serious about what I do, help.
First of all, bother us. Yeah, bother us. We do get a lot. I think most of us probably get a lot of people approaching us, but it's kind of our thing to be open to people bringing stories to us. So yeah, you definitely don't hesitate. Does anyone want to go more into that, like just how a creator can approach you? Alex, how do people approach you?
Just come talk to me. Or no, I'm just kidding. Just no. I mean, nowadays a lot through friends or people I work with, but we're open to meet talents all the time. I think as long as you're really sure that what you want to do, what story you want to tell, not because it's what everyone else is doing, then we're pretty open.
Yeah, differentiate yourself in some way. I mean, I'll tell you, I probably get about 10 things emailed to me every single day. And a lot of them are this really, log lines look the same. So standing out is pretty crucial. Back there?
How you doing? First off, thank you so much. I'm buzzing with excitement from what you're all saying up here. Alex and Julia in particular, as a writer who's trying to get out there, got a screenplay about the first male phone sex operator, kind of a different, novel, unique thing. Put out 100 or so seeds to different people. Unfortunately, not you guys. Got a nibble from Netflix, which was freaking awesome. But then dead air. So my question, long-winded question, is how do you actually get through to people like yourselves so that you're answering?
Is that walking off the stage music? I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I think maybe that's a bit of a similar question in terms of how we can get through. I think most of us are not that hard to find. Most of us probably have websites, and IMDb Pro is pretty darn good. But yeah, I mean, your male phone sex operator is a pretty cool sounding thing. So I'd just keep at it. You, sir. Is that Adam? Oh, yeah, you, sir.
Okay, so Carlos from Peru. Specifically, I wanted to ask all of you, but Diana, your experience as an American producer, for us, for many early stage filmmakers, it's always a thing of pushing until you get it done. And you've mentioned something very interesting, which is participatory filmmaking and involving these communities. I'm guessing probably more in the documentary side, but meaning on the possibilities of involving the communities. But how are other alternatives to make our ideas a reality nowadays that, of course, in a region like ours, it's so extremely difficult to work with governments to make things done. It's very difficult to get the financing. But there is the eager of telling so many stories. So what other alternatives have you found in your career as you've made your films? Thank you.
Well, I think everything is about, cinema is about collective creation in many levels. So when I said about create relations with the communities, also for fictions. And it's, when I said many levels, it's very important, especially for Latin American films and also some Asians and some part of East Europe is about co-production. That is also collaboration. It's not only about money, it's about what she knows that I don't know, and we can build something together. And this is the meaning of cinema. I mean, of course, we have directors, we have writers, but a director without the DOP, without the production designer, without the actors, without every one of us, can't do anything. I mean, this is a specific art that absolutely need a community building this in front of the camera and behind of the camera. So co-production is literally the way to make these films possible, but at the same time is a way to connect the audience. If you think like, for example, Latin American people, we are around 600 million people speaking Spanish. So why we are not circulating our films in a huge market like that? It's a big problem because we are under the domination of the big studios, and in Colombia it's completely the opposite. We are like the 3% of the total share in the market. It's a nightmare.
Same as Canada, actually, around 3%.
So you are neighbors. And it's terrible, but I think it also depends on us as producers and artists to create alternatives, to connect our films and to create a market. I love to tell this story. We made a film. In fact, that film was released here at TIFF 16 years ago. It was the beginning of that film. It was fantastic. It was a little film, Crab Trap. And I kept the rights for Latin America because I was really upset with my sales agent of the previous film of that. So I kept the rights in Latin America, and with my friend Elba McAllister from Cineplex Colombia, she took the risk to distribute the film in Latin America, like literally, knocking each door, like a Cine Club in Bolivia in DVD. Let's go. Let's do it. And the film has an incredible life. But beyond of the money, which was nothing, but is still doing money, by the way, in Latin America, it was incredible because it opened the door for an audience. I mean, people that hasn't watched a Colombian film before, they watched that film, and they like it, and they had the access. So, and it's also about community. It's also about working together. If you make a film, a co-production between Peru, Colombia, and Brazil, we have those incredible neighborhoods. Brazil is a gigantic country with money, with the great spirit of collaboration. So then for sure, your film will be released in Colombia and Brazil and Peru. So you see, it's about that. It's about to create a network, but it's also about, for me, to create a community that is beyond of a business, is to work together.
I love everything you just said. And the thought I had is, if I'm crazy enough to not have a job for 25 years, I must be crazy enough to try to create a market. Because this is my frustration. I feel like we've waited around for the market to be there for us, and that's not what it's doing. Right now, I see the market trying to please structures of power, and I'm not interested in that. So how do we create a market for stories that aren't focused on pleasing power structures, that are interested in deepening the connections between human beings and deepening our understanding of what it means to be human, humanistic storytelling, and instead of propaganda? That's what I'm kind of trying to get at here. There. who among us focuses on co-production? Deanna, and is it mostly amongst South American countries or everywhere in the world? So, okay, and crossing languages.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
But I will just say a little thing. As in any business, it's about what you and me agree. Of course, there are some rules, depends of many political things. So, for example, Colombia has a bilateral treaty with Canada that nobody is using because it's extremely complicated. So
It's probably our fault, I'm sorry.
yeah, but you can also co-produce without a treaty. This is something that the people think is not possible. It's possible. It's more limited in terms of the subsidies or helps you can have, but you can have something. You know, there is always a way to make it work, and it's all about what you agree with the other. Normally, there is a lead producer that is handling everything, and there are other co-producers that follow you in your initiative. But it's like put everything on the table, be clear since the beginning. If you are in an official co-production, try to follow the rules or try to make it work. It means sometimes the rules can be, you have many interpretations of the rules.
Yeah, but hopefully also the structures that govern the co-production rules actually want to be productive and have collaborations that work. So hopefully you can work with them to, you know, find the path. Yeah, but there's both official co-production and unofficial co-production. I work with co-production a lot. The Apprentice was a co-production with Canada and Ireland and Denmark. And I've just finished another one. Yulia, you work with co-productions, and are they official co-production structures or unofficial?
For me, it's always unofficial because we don't have treaty. When I work as a delegate producer, so my co-production always like 6 countries, 5 countries, 9 countries, something like that. When I delegate producer, of course, I lead everything. And then when I co-produce a film like, for example, Renoir, here, Echo, our lead producer, and Jason is there. I'm more following the lead of our delegate producer. But I think, of course, it always starts with financing, of course, I believe that. Then after that, we can just share the portion of the works, of the responsibility, and then to respect that. I think that's how it works.
Cool. And Alex, do you work with co-production structures a lot?
Always, yeah. Co-productions with maybe 28 countries already. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Right.
Okay.
And we don't, as is like Indonesia, we don't have any treaties, so it's always unofficial.
You mean specific to Japan or?
To U.S.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Japan.
And that answers the question for Julie. U.S. don't co-produce because U.S. don't have treaties. You know, for some obvious reasons, but do you think it's time for that to change, or how do you see that? Like, obviously, like full disclosure, we have produced together, which are technically co-productions, I guess, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the obvious thing is like all American producers leave the country to go make their movies because it's very hard actually to make your movies at home right now. Should we have treaties? I honestly don't know the answer to that. I think selfishly, I would like to see, you know, I come from LA, so it's a very specific angle, but I would like to see our government help us the way I feel like the Canadian government helps Canadian filmmakers. That's what I would like for my peers. But
Viva la socialisme.
and so I would like that first. That being said, my storytelling desires are vast. I just made a movie in Japan, and I can't wait to go back and make another. So I would like to have my cake and eat it too. But at home right now, it is so challenging to, you know, have a family, have a life, and be a producer. And that's not just a producer, as a director, that's any role, because there's just not enough support to keep your job at home. So that's what I would like to see first, and then maybe the treaties later.
And I think this is one of the cool things I've discovered over the years is from doing a lot of co-productions. It's like we have to go reach out to the world. We have to work together. That necessarily makes us expand our perspectives. That informs the kinds of stories we're telling. I'm curious if we maybe, and this is maybe a whole other panel, maybe could be seeing the center of gravity of at least movies, if not broader storytelling, expand beyond where that center of gravity has been, mostly, I guess, in Los Angeles or in the United States. Is it possible some of the changes in the world that include the political changes, the rise of isolation, economic isolationism, may create a more dispersion of that center of gravity of this industry? I think it's really something to pay attention to. Maybe, can we do one more? We're out of time. I'm so sorry. Okay. Lots to talk about. Thank you, guys.